We have with us today a very special guest, the man himself, head coach of the University of Nebraska men's basketball team, Fred Hoiberg. Coach, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure it's been a pretty hectic week for you guys, all things considered.
Yeah, great being on your show, guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, I guess we'll kind of start broad here. I know after the game, listening to your interview with Kent Pavelka, he asked you, coming off that Michigan win and the close of the regular season, just what the level of sense of accomplishment was for you and for your team, given all that you've been able to do thus far. Kind of what's the balance between looking back and reflecting on all the impressive feats that have happened to date, while also not getting too caught up in it and staying focused on the task at hand, where things get real now heading into March.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really fun season, and I know I talked a lot about this early in the year, that we had a group that was going to be very enjoyable to be around on a daily basis, and that's exactly what's happened. These guys have come to work every day, even after setbacks or after tough games. They still come in and are very resilient and get back to work and really start with preparation, which is so important to bounce back from games like that. And, the way that we ended this season, I believe it was 7-8 at the end of the year, and getting 2 big road wins. We know how important that was. And that was a big narrative on our team, is we were really good in Pinnacle Bank Arena at home. But could we go out and get a couple on the road, to really solidify the opportunity to play in March in the postseason? And that's exactly what our guys did. And it started with that game at Indiana, which was an unbelievable start for us, and then hit a huge patch of adversity and found a way to get it back going again, the things that had made us successful in that first half, and getting a big double-digit win on the road. And then following that up with the last game of the year. That was a really important game for us, that Michigan game, to go out there and get another big win against a team that's dangerous. They had been very close, and I think the biggest example of that the week before was Purdue, where it was a single-digit game all the way up until the last 2 minutes, and had a tie game with Michigan State with 2 minutes to go. So we knew that was a completely different team than the one that we faced at PBA a couple weeks prior, because of Doug McDaniel being on the floor. So to find a way to get it going, and Casey obviously got us off to a great start, and we had a really good defensive effort in the second half to get that huge win, to give us some momentum heading into Minneapolis. And as I've told the guys, I mean, we don't have a lot of players on this roster that have played in the big tournament. And, I'm very fortunate. I played in 3 of them. I coached in 4 of them at Iowa State, and there's nothing like it. All the work that you put in, the body of work over the course of the year, even going back to April and June when we were going through our workouts to get ready for our foreign trip to Spain in July, it's all for what we're about to embark on, is this postseason journey. And it starts in Minneapolis, and, having the opportunity to stand on a ladder and cut down nets at a conference tournament twice. Again, those are things you're going to remember for the rest of your life. And then the opportunity to play in March Madness is something that these guys will always remember, especially here. I think this is only the 8th time in the history of the program where we're going to have an opportunity to play on this stage and, hopefully do something that's never been done in the history of this program. But, when I look back on this entire journey, when we put this group together, I guess to answer your initial question, Robin, it's just been a very focused, driven group. And I think you've seen that. We did not defend great in January, but when you look at our February numbers and the little things that we did to tweak our defense to give us a better chance to be more consistent and to be one of the top 5 defensive teams in the country in the month of February, that's what allowed us to go on a run. We've been a pretty solid, consistent offensive team, but our defensive turnaround is what is putting us in this position right now. So it's been a group that, when I look back on my career, when it's all over, who knows when that'll be, but this will always go down as one of the favorite groups that I've ever been around.
Fred, I was sort of irrationally interested in the Michigan game because of what you faced. I mean, it was a Sunday morning tip-off in a quiet arena, and I really wondered what would the energy be like from your guys. What did you tell them? Did you address that part going in, and how much of it? How much help was it that Casey looked like he was full of energy in the early going of that game?
Yeah, it is something that we talk about, Steve. When you play those early games, the importance of getting off to a good start. And the team that comes out of the gate the fastest generally wins those early games. And not only the 11 a.m. Central start, but also you lose an hour with with the spring forward. So really, it was a 10 a.m. game
Really?
for our guys. And when the one advantage I think that we practice in the morning, and we come in, generally get started at 8 o'clock with a film session, and then our guys go through their warm-ups, and we'll do some testing with the strength coach in the sports science department, and then we'll get on the floor, and then they'll lift. So we've had the advantage of practicing early, and we've played a lot of games at a lot of different times. Last week we had an 8 o'clock game. We had an 8:30 game the week before that, PM on the road, and then you bounce back and play a couple of early games here, and that's going to help us in the tournament. When I was at Iowa State, we won the Big 12 conference tournament, and it was such an emotional ride, and we had played pretty much all evening games, 7 or 8 o'clock tips, and then they put us in the first game at 11 a.m. on Thursday, which isn't right. If you win your conference tournament, you should at least play a late game Thursday or even into Friday, and we got upset. And, the benefit of this team is we played games at any time and every time. We had 3 5:30 games in our last 3 home games on Sunday. So, that's going to help us. As little as that might seem, to your point, Steve, when you have an early game and you have to come out and set the tone, it's exactly what our guys did. And I think the fact that we've had early practice times and early games really helped us in that area.
You're here listening to a special basketball edition of Husker Headlines, joined here by Nebraska head coach Fred Hoiberg. Coach, you mentioned just the tournament teams and March Madness experience you've had as a player and as a coach. What is there a way to kind of just explain the difference between the level of intensity and everything that comes with this time of year compared to the regular season, just the kind of win or go home mentality you have to have? And what about this group maybe gives you optimism they'll be able to handle kind of this new stage they're going to be on here?
Yeah, I mean, it's the reason you're in this business. It's the reason you play this game, is to have the opportunity to compete for championships. And, you see it every year. There's 8, 9, 10, 11 seeds that are playing in the Final Four for a national championship. So it's really why you do this. It's why you're in this business. So, like I said, it's the fun time of year. It's like in the NBA. I'll never forget Kevin McHale talking about, just the grind of the 82 game regular season. And then, you have that carrot at the end, and then you get the opportunity to play in the playoffs and compete for a world championship. Here it's the same thing. You go through so much with, the strength and conditioning sessions in the offseason, the 8 hours that you get 4 in the weight room, 4 on the court. There's so much work behind the scenes. People see you 31 times during the regular season and in your exhibitions. And then, all of that is designed to put yourself in a position of what we're about to go through. And, I do like our team right now. We're playing the best basketball that we've played all season. And a lot of that has to do with the defensive identity that we've created. And that's what wins games at this time of year. And that's what has to continue to be our constant. The other thing that we can't do is go away from what has been making us successful. And sometimes when you get on the biggest stage, you get away a little bit and you try to do too much. We're in a good place. I really like the way that our team is competing and playing together right now. And I don't think that's going to be an issue, but that will be stressed when we get back on the floor starting tomorrow after the off day, is just continue to go out and be the best version of yourself. And if we do that, we're going to have a chance to do something that has never been done before in this program.
Fred, that defense, I think it's sort of defined by doubling the post, but how else would you characterize it? And who would you credit most for that?
Yeah, Nate Lenzer is the guy that I really went to. Nate and I have been together for a long time. I brought him in as my video guy at Iowa State. And then once I was able to get him into, a full-time coaching position, it was one of the best hires that I ever made. And I took him to Chicago with me when I got the Bulls job. And then he was the head coach of the Windy City Bulls and did a phenomenal job there. So when he came back, I really talked a lot about him, and he and I got together and really tried to put a defensive scheme that would fit with the players that we have on this roster. We don't have a lot of great individual defenders. Mm-hmm. We've got good individual defenders, but this is really a team system, and all 5 have to be in the right spot in order for this defense to work. And you're right, Steve. We do come from the baseline, which is pretty unique as far as our double team scheme. We always have somebody, it's the opposite low man that is ready to come over and help anytime that we are beat. We do not want to get beat to the middle of the floor. We don't have something to cover when you have that type of breakdown to the middle. But if it stays on the outer third and on the towards the baseline, the sideline of the baseline, then we do have that built-in help. So that's really what we try to do. And then, we do a ton of drills every day to really make sure that we're building the right habits so we can execute for those 40 minutes. And even, when I went back and looked at the Michigan game, I talked about this on my post game. I didn't think our defensive edge was great in the first half, but a lot of that, Michigan made a lot of tough shots. I mean, they made contested threes at the end of the shot clock. So it wasn't, which it never is as good or as bad as you think it is. But I did think our energy was pretty good. And then we kept that, and I think even ramped it up a little bit in the second half, where we held Michigan to 24%, 1 for 13 from the 3-point line. So, these guys have been tied in, and, I've been really pleased with how they cover for each other out there. And when you have a connected group on that end of the floor, again, you're going to have a chance most nights.
Wrapping up here with Nebraska basketball head coach Fred Hoiberg. One more for you, Coach. Obviously we focus a lot on recruiting here at Husker Online, and just wanted to kind of look back on your experience when you have postseason success and you're able to play on the big stage in March Madness. How much does that open doors when it comes to recruiting? And have you noticed maybe a change in how you've been received on the road during these off weeks, and just the on-court success carrying over to recruiting success and maybe giving you a little more momentum that way?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it, Robin. It does help when you're on the national stage like this. And, listen, we're in a great league that's got as much exposure as any conference in the country. So, there is exposure, but when you have success, and we talk a lot about our system and our style, obviously, when we go into recruiting, and, we've had a lot of players that have made it to the top level at Iowa State and Nebraska. 12 players in 9 years have made it to the NBA. And, that helps, that resonates. But when you have success and people can see the style in the system, and, there's a lot of freedom involved, and it's very much NBA style basketball with the 5-out spread offense, then people really see what you're talking about. And, listen, it's obviously a completely different dynamic right now with the portal, with NIL. But when you're playing on the national stage and your recruits can see that, that obviously helps. So, we met this morning, as we do often about recruiting and where things stand right now, and just want to continue to get the right guys in this program. And we've really built this thing, I think, with a group that Nebraskans and this fan base can be proud of because of how hard they play and how they leave everything they have on the floor. Generally, it's very rare that we miss a loose ball, and it happened again last night. We were the first to floor on numerous occasions and got way more 50-50 balls, than our opponent. And that's been held pretty true for this group. And, it's going to have to continue if we want to have success in March. But, this is a group that I think our fan base, and I've heard a lot from the fans of, a group they're proud of, and we want to continue on with that.
Fred, I'm old, and I'm old enough. Stop. I'm old enough to have seen you play in Ames.
You are old.
All right. Did you see? Did you play defense as well as Sam?
He got his mother's feistiness. Let's just put it that way. I was actually pretty underrated. When you play at the level that I was very fortunate to play 10 years in, you have to have some level of defensive competitiveness, or you're going to get embarrassed. Especially when I played with the defensive rules that were in place before they changed it now to the defensive 3-second. But Kevin, when Mikhail was here last week, we were talking a lot about that. And one thing that I had good hands, and I could always get the ball before when they were going up for their shot, because I wasn't getting it up top. And Sam's got way better feet than I ever had. His anticipation, his feet are as good as anybody, I think, in our league. I mean, he has really defended at a high level against some of the top players. Even looking back to when we played Michigan State and Tyson Walker, he was phenomenal there, helping out with Bryce Williams and Jamarcus Lawrence on Boo Buie when we played them at our place. So he's really found a role and a niche on this team, and he always understands the scouting report as well. He's a very smart player on that end, and the steals that he's come up with. When I look at last year, the Maryland play at the end of the game, getting the steal on the out of bounds play, even the high-low play that Wisconsin ran where he came over the top and got a steal, that's the play they run generally in the last possession, and he knew that, and he knew it was coming. So he's been terrific on that end. And again, you have to do something that will give you a role to put you on the floor, and defense certainly has been that for Sam. So yes, he is a better defender than I ever was, Sipple, but I wasn't terrible.
Right. Good answer, Fred. Good answer.
All right. Well, that wraps it up here with Nebraska head coach Fred Hoiberg. Coach, thank you again for taking the time. I know you're a busy man, and now the fun part begins, right?
Absolutely. Yep. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, Fred. Take care.